Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
In the 2015 election, as per usual, fewer young people voted than any other age group following an established trend. And the chasm was its deepest between the youngest and the oldest, so 43% of 18 to 24-year-olds put a paper in the ballot box, as against a whopping 78% of over 65s. The writer and satirist Armando Ianucci has become so exercised about this disconnect that he's been trying to brew up a Twitter storm with a campaign to get 3 million 18 to 24-year-olds to register to vote before the deadline of May the 22nd. One of his tweets ran thus: "I beg you on my gnarled and brittle knees, register to vote, then vote." I spoke earlier to the man who likes to make a mockery of politicians about his desperation to get young people to vote for them. I asked him whether he really believed that young people held this election in their hands.
I think it's important that young people engage as much as possible in the election, because if they don't, they lose. If you look at how politics has conducted itself over the last 20 years, the young vote has gone down. So a lot fewer voters between 18 and 24 vote than, say, voters over 65. So as a result, people over 65 are courted by politicians. I remember one very senior minister telling me that if it was the last day of an election campaign and you had a choice between canvassing a hall of residence or an old people's home, you do the old people's home any day, because they're the ones who are going to vote. And as a result, young people have been abused by the system. It's young people who have had their housing benefit cut, their education maintenance allowance cut. They're not part of the living wage until age 25. They're an easy target. So the more young people vote, irrespective of who they vote for, the more they have something that politicians are after, which is a vote.
But don't you want young people to vote in a particular way? So you would like young people, I imagine, to vote for Remain candidates, or tactically vote for Remain candidates. So in fact, you only want them to vote if they vote your way.
No. I mean, this is how democracy works. I have no idea how they'll vote. I saw one opinion poll that showed that young people might split more in favour of the Tories this election. Do you know what? I'd rather they voted than they didn't vote, because it's also about how politics is going to function in the future. If politicians rely more and more on the fewer and fewer people who do come out in elections, it does mean that a larger and larger percentage of the population are just ignored and forgotten about.
So should young people be allowed to vote at 16, as they did in the Scottish referendum?
Yes, I've advocated. I thought that. I mean, initially when that was announced in Scotland, I was a little bit concerned, but actually the level of debate, the excitement, and also the fact that 16 and 17-year-olds for the first time felt really involved in fundamentally important decisions about their country's future, really galvanised an interest in politics. So I'm all for opening that up. I mean, David Cameron was given the opportunity to allow 16, 17-year-olds to vote in the EU referendum, and he said no, because he was thinking about how it might affect the Tory vote in the future. If he'd said yes, then he may well be Prime Minister still.
But don't people 65 plus have as a legitimate right to have their views heard as people under 25?
Yes, absolutely. I'm not suggesting that they stay in. And I'm also saying, if you think none of the above, then spoil your paper. I don't care. I just want you to get out and register, because as soon as you register, you have that one thing that a politician needs off you, which is a vote.
But isn't there a terrific irony in this? Because you, Armando Ianucci, have spent much of your life writing brilliant satire about the terrible state our politicians are in, the thick of it here, Veep in America, satirising politicians for being venal, being stupid, pursuing their own agendas. So you kind of undermine politics in a way, don't you? Because people say, well, why should I care about them?
Well, no, I mean, what's happened there is I've responded to that in my own way, which is through doing things like the thick of it. I think you cannot change politics. If you're angry, like I've been angry about the state of politics, but if you care about politics as much as I care about politics, you have to do something. And I think that something must start with at least registering, showing an interest, and then getting out and voting.
And are you putting your hand on your heart and truly saying that it actually doesn't matter to you If every single person between 18 and 25 was, for example, to vote for Theresa May, it wouldn't matter to you?
Well, I'd be surprised. A British Prime Minister, if they have a massive majority, have total power. So I'd say, even though the headlines are saying huge majorities are inevitable, if young people are looking for a reason to try and make any kind of a difference, then at the very least they might be interested in seeing that majority, that total power, that sort of elected dictatorship, as Lord Hailsham once described it, is minimised.
But, you know, here we are,
yeah.
Here you are, and why should young people listen to you? They know they've made up their minds. They understand politics. They understand the system.
I don't know.
You don't necessarily want you to tell them what to do.
No, of course, and I'm not going to tell them what to do, but you invited me on the programme.
Absolutely.
I didn't ring up and ask.
But you've been tweeting like crazy.
Yes, well, you've been reading my tweets and responding.
I always do. I always do. So here you are, Armando Ianucci, who is an Italian Scot, who lives near London, who plies his trade sometimes across the Atlantic. What kind of Britain do you want to live in?
I want to live in a Britain that has a fully functioning democracy. And, you know, I've been writing for some time about how people are frustrated by... I mean, we now have a system, we still have a system whereby in the last election, 37% of the people who voted Conservative. And yet they gain a majority, a working majority with other parties of about 20. I was just listening to when Theresa May announced the election. She said she was announcing it because Parliament couldn't agree with her on serious legislation. Now, that sounded to me like how a proper functioning democracy should work. And the fact that she could casually announce that as a flaw in the system that needs to be corrected and ask for a mandate that allows her to get whatever she wants without opposition, I find a worrying trend.
Do you see the possibility of a satirical episode in that?
Let's see how it plays out in front of us in reality first.
So are you ready to go back into television satire?
At some point, yeah.
In Britain?
Who knows? I just want to get this election out of the way first.
Amanda, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, I'm joined now by Shakira Martin, who just yesterday won the election to become the next president of the National Union of Students. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Let's deal, first of all, with national politics. Armando Ianucci says there, you know, politicians are obsessed with older people. That's the votes that they're trying to court because more than 70% vote. Let's just take something like the triple lock-in pensions, which actually Jeremy Corbyn is wedded to, much more so than even the Tories. The triple lock-in pensions guarantees pensioners an extra at least 2.5% increase a year. Why not campaign to take that away from pensioners and actually use it for increasing apprenticeship wages, you know, reducing tuition fees, making affordable rents for young people? Why not actually take that and say, don't spend it there, spend it here?
So I think there's a few things. Pensioners go out and vote. It's almost a guaranteed vote. So when elections are happening, they're guaranteed to come out. So they need to have a promise to the older generation, and that's through pension.
But that's a kind of chicken and egg, isn't it? Because actually, they pander to them, you could say, because they come out and vote. But if young people went out and vote, they might actually pander to you.
So I think there's a few things. Firstly, it's about making politics engaging and translatable and relatable to young people. Many young people and students that I speak to, they find politics unrelatable. When they see politicians speaking, they don't look like them, they don't sound like them, and they don't see the link between how politics is related to their everyday life. And for that reason, they're kind of disenfranchised and disengaged in politics.
But they partly think that because of the way that politics is conducted, for example, on student campuses, that it's kind of narrow and niche, and actually things like trans issues, no platforming, cultural appropriation, you know, that is very, I would say, it doesn't brook broad argument. It looks like you know, you can't afford to argue with this or you'll be kind of struck down. I
think it's more simpler than that. Before we can start getting young people to understand the importance of freedom of speech, we need to get them to understand the importance of shaping their generation and the society that they would like to live in, and the importance of, you know, them exercising their democratic right by going out and voting, and that is the way in which they can make change.
But you know, do you think that young people, particularly people on campus, you need to be more thick-skinned about people holding different views than theirs?
Yeah, 100%.
And so someone like Jeremy and Grace should be invited to universities?
I believe that we should encourage healthy debate, and a university should be a place for people to learn, as the NUS is about supporting student unions in doing so.
Is there too much intolerance, do you think, in you know, colleges and in universities? Too much intolerance towards views that don't support your own?
I think that there's a need for some healthy discussion, and we need to promote the importance of bringing people together to have healthy debate and respecting differences and freedom of speech, but coming up with solutions together to be able to make change.
You are president-elect of one of the biggest trade unions in this country. Yeah. You know, I would think that you should actually be the heart of this election. You know, your policies should be something that politicians court need to talk to you about things. So, for example, you know, we hear tonight that on tuition fees are going to be increased. There's not going to be a commensurate increase in standards. But on the question of tuition fees, where is your big platform that you, as leader, president-elect of a union, will take out and actually make politicians listen to you?
So it's about getting young people to get the argument first and understand the importance of free education. I think there's a lot of young people, especially in colleges, who will be going on to universities or sixth form, who don't understand the argument, who don't know when they're making choices about universities that there's different values with the proposal of the TEF bill. And I'm really proud of the work that my current Vice President, Sarana, has done in separating the links between raising of tuition fees and quality. We think that students should be entitled to high quality, but not at the detriment of if you can afford it or not.
But how do you make, I mean, they're not registered to vote. There's 3 million need to register, 3 million. Isn't it your job to get out there and make them do that?
It's definitely our job to go out there and represent them nationally as the National Union of Students. I think it's something we have to do collectively. We have to be working with our communities and other organisations, giving political education and citizenship education to let young people understand the importance of voting and how that influences and shapes their future.
Shakira, thank you very much indeed.
I've been getting away with it all.